Hello, Sarah here. Welcome to another conversation for the sake of ourselves. So the conversation I want to have today is a conversation around authority and this idea that, inherently and just naturally and by nature, you actually are the authority of yourself in your life. You are the authority of you, yourself, and yours, all of the parts of yourself. You are the authority of that. And it's a role that, you can definitely, by being an authority of yourself in your life, you can also have the authority of what other authorities you're going to build team with and you can source yourself from. But today's conversation is really about this idea of what does it take to be the authority in your life? What does it take to honor the authority that you are in your life and cultivate an authoritative relationship with yourself that's really healthy and grounded and really serves you in your best interests? So, to get started, actually, let's look at the definition of authority just to make sure we're on the same page and we're speaking the same language. So, let me pull my tablet here. So, the meaning of authority is power to influence or command thought, opinion, or behavior. So again, I'll say it one more time. The meaning of authority is power to influence or command thought, opinion, or behavior. So if you take a look at yourself as your own authority, so you for yourself have the power to influence or command your thought, your opinion, or your behavior. And, that is the truth. You are the authority of your life. You have the power to influence or command your thought, command and influence your opinion, and command and influence your behavior. Now, do we always act in the authority of ourselves? Not necessarily, but we do have the opportunity to cultivate ourselves as the authority of our lives and to build a trusting relationship, a trusting authoritative relationship with ourselves and all the parts of ourselves in our life. And I also want to say that, yes, you are the authority of your life. And sometimes being the authority of your life, you can definitely note and see where you might not have all the information and you might want to pull in other authorities in specific genres or fields that, have expert information that you trust, that you want to utilize and bring in and let that have a power and influence over your thought. But again, you are still the authority of who you bring in as the authorities in your life. So it all comes back to you. It always comes back to you. Wherever you go, there you are. It comes back to you. This is your life. This is your being. This is your nature. This is your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit, and your conscious creator self. And this is your dance. This is your cultivation. So you are the authority for yourself, your thoughts, your opinion, and your behavior, and what this life is for and about. So, to some, the idea of being the authority of their life is pretty daunting. Like, it's like, where do I even source from? Where do I even come from? How do I even operate as the authority of my life? And I say personally, from my own experience, what really supports being the authority of my life is to build a trusting, loving, understanding, connected, very real and honest relationship with myself. Because if I can have a real and honest relationship with myself where I have built trust that I am accountable to myself and I show up for myself and I show up for what matters to me and what I value and show up to how I want to treat myself and others around me, or how I want to show up to my life and what my life is for and in service to, when I can really build a trust, a cultivated relationship of trust with myself, I really give myself the free reins to be the authority of my life, because there's this really established trust that, okay, I've got this. I can lean in and trust the authority I have with myself. I can trust that I'm going to show up to the parts of myself. I can trust that I'm going to show up to this life of myself. So I trust the authority that I have and am. So I think trust is a really key factor in building this authority relationship with yourself, this authoritative relationship with yourself. I also love, by the way, I'm going to say a little aside, but I love how the word author is in authority and authoritative, because it really is. You are authoring your life. You get to be the author of your life. You have the authority of your life. You are writing your life, dictating your life, saying what your life is and for and what your experience is. And yeah, it's not from we can control all the parts and pieces, their life can get lifey and things can be thrown at us, but we do really get to be the authority and have a say and be the author of how we respond, how we react, how we cultivate ourselves, so that even when maybe we don't have the experience of having a lot of power of how we respond and how we react, we can be the author of our life and the authority of our life to learn the skills or to do the healing or to develop ourselves and cultivate ourselves for in service and to what matters most to us and who we are and what we are and what we say is going to win the day around us. So yeah, it's this idea of being, okay, we get to be the authority in our own lives. And as like, I know when I first start to think about, okay, I'm the authority of my life. I'm the authority go-to person. Here I go. What do I have authority for? Where do I call in that authority? Where do I call for that authority? And, what comes up often is where I'm not. Like, where am I abdicating my authority? Where am I being more of like a victim or an at the effect of my life and giving up the authority that I actually have? Where am I letting myself, where am I letting myself go mushy along the outsides and edges, or not trusting myself? Or yeah, where am I surrendering my authority or giving it up? Where have I let it go? Who have I given that authority power to? These might be good questions to ask yourself. Like, who are the authorities you currently have in your life? Who has authority over you or with you? Or who do you go to for authority? And you might have a multitude of people or resources that you go to for, that you look to for the authority in areas of your life. Like, you might have certain people for your health and well-being that is, that serves as the authority in your life. And those might be, medical health professionals, etc. And again, it's great to have a team of people and resources we go to that can influence and have power over our thoughts, behaviors, and opinions, and they might really serve and have value. But at the end of the day, it's really up to you to say who gets that kind of power and influence with you. So you still have the, baseline, ground zero, mile one authority of your life. And it does always come back to you. There's a lot of talk about radical responsibility, and I love that conversation about radical responsibility and like being accountable in your own life. And it's really the same conversation. It's like, there's a lot of power. There's a lot of empowerment, like not power to control, but empowerment for yourself and your being and your grounding and your floor and your foundation when you say for yourself that I'm radically responsible and I am the authority of my life. And, if I make a mistake, that mistake's on me. I don't have to blame myself or trudge myself or beat myself up for it. But I'm the one that actually does have the end say of who I am, what I am, and how I show up. And so I am, fully responsible for this life and being that I am and that I'm living. And it can be daunting. And of course, with that level of responsibility and authority, we're likely going to, flounder a little bit. We're likely going to have a few mistakes. We're likely going to, need to course correct a few times. We're in the process of learning. And I think when we give ourselves room to learn and make mistakes, but still source ourselves from the mindset of we are the authority, we can really grow and learn. I think just by having that lens and that filter that I am the authority in my life and I'm growing and learning and gaining trust in myself to be the authority of my life. But it is my role and responsibility. It is something that whether I say I am or I'm not, in the end, I still am. Like, it's just the inherent part. Like, this is your life force. This is your essence. Like, nobody else is responsible for it. We definitely do live in community spaces and, as a collective in many ways. And there's definitely roles that people and places and things and experiences will have in your life. And there's definitely different impacts or effects people will have in our life. And there's definitely a lot of influence people and things and experiences will have in our life, for sure. And at the end of the day, whether you claim it or not, you are responsible for your life. You are the authority of and for your life. So there's a real, in my opinion, value to just claim it now, because you are it anyways. And as soon as we as soon as we do, as soon as we claim it, as soon as we declare it, as soon as we say it and come from it and own it, it's really like owning the space of, I am the authority of my life. I am the authority of me. I'm the authority of my happiness. I'm the authority of my joy. I'm the authority of my well-being. It's like, there's all of a sudden a role and a responsibility for me to show up to, so I can ongoingly have trust in the authority that I am. And, if we don't declare or say that we're the authority of our lives, or we're abdicating that responsibility, sure, you can. And life is going to go how life is going to go. But at the end of the day, there's not the availability for the kind of power and empowerment and resilience that can actually be had. The claiming it now up front and owning it now and up front gives you a place to come from and live through. So you really get to take your experiences in and learn and grow from them, building block by block, really building the foundation of yourself and the authority that you are for yourself. Now, you are not the authority of anybody else either. And that's another good thing to note too, when you look at, like, I am the authority for myself. Like, I'm the authority for my being, myself, and my life and my experience and what matters to me. You are not the authority for anybody around you on that. Somebody can, advise of you. They might, inquire with you. There's different supportive roles you can play, but even the people around you, it's interesting to start treating each person that they are the authority in their life. Like, if somebody keeps coming to you as an authority figure in their life, there is an opportunity to, reframe that and look or bring them to the idea that they're the authority in their life. And whether you bring that idea to them or not, just the idea that you can source yourself from, I'm the authority here of my life, and that person over there, they're the authority over there of their life. They know what's best for them, or it's their duty to know what's best for them, whether they do take it on as something important to them to know what's best for them. It is their duty, responsibility, and role that they are the authority over there in their life. That is not my role. My role for myself is I am and get to be the authority of my life, and I get to learn and discover what's best for me and say and declare what's best for me. And again, flounder and make mistakes in the process, just like the person in front of you might flounder and make mistakes in the process, but they are the authority in their lives, and they get to learn and grow into that authority and expand on that and build their foundation for it. So yeah, and what was interesting, the reason this whole conversation for me came up about authority in my life is I was taking a look at my parenting style. It's like I love to assess and go introspective about my parenting style. And I noticed that, I never actually, defined my parenting style before, but I was taking a look at it, and I was coming across there's 4 distinguished, parenting styles that have been, put out there, that are generally accepted as the 4 main types of parenting styles. There's a lot of subcategories, but generally speaking, on parenting styles, which this also relates to relationship styles, in my opinion, like how we, the different parenting styles and how we parent our children, is very similar to the relationship styles that we can have with ourselves and have with the people around us. So, for me, they're kind of more relationship styles, but these were specifically as parenting styles. And, there's kind of like a spectrum of four, and it's like neglectful parenting style, a permissive parenting style, an authoritative parenting style, or an authoritarian parenting style. And now each of them have pros and cons, and some more than others, and it is a bit of a spectrum. Like on one side is a neglective kind of parenting style, and on the other side is an authoritarian parenting style. And and then kind of in the middle is the permissive and the authoritative parenting style. And I can see for my own self and my own parenting style, I kind of fall in between authoritative and permissive. I aim to be, my goal is to be authoritative, and that's the sense that, if you look up, actually, I might even look that up because it was really interesting. Authoritative parenting. They actually had like kind of a list, which I appreciated. Yeah, like what I aim for is this authoritative parenting style. And it's interesting because over the years in, developing myself as that kind of parent, that is actually the kind of relationship I started building with myself, and understanding how important it is actually to be the authority of my own life as well. And I think that's what I wanted for my kids most, is for them to be the authority of their own lives. And so I think that's what attracted to me, this parenting style. Again, I didn't know the name of I never went out to be an authoritative parent per se, but all the parenting that I was doing fits inside of that authoritative parenting style category. And given that autonomy, agency, and advocacy are so dear to me ever since I was very young, autonomy, agency, and advocacy has been super important to me. Authoritative parenting style fits very well in with what my values already are. So, but I did find it really interesting to look up this idea of authoritative parenting and notice at times I would lean towards permissive parenting because I really didn't want to be authoritarian parenting. I grew up with one parent that was more of an authoritarian style parent that I really resisted against, and caused a lot of turmoil within me and my nature and my sovereignty, that, if anything, I really look to avoid being an authoritarian parent and would rather be on the permissive side than the authoritarian side. But really, I'm committed to that authoritative parenting style. And what the key characteristics of authoritative parenting style is, and I'm naming this just because, again, you might not be a parent, you might not be interested in parenting styles, but it's a great way to even look at your own relationship with yourself and being the authority for yourself in your life, because these are key characteristics of an authoritative relationship. So if you're looking to have an authoritative relationship with yourselves, these key characteristics are really key points that you're going to want to cultivate, learn skills around, develop on, take stock of, notice, grow, expand, etc. So the key characteristics of authoritative parenting, and again, of authoritative relationship, are high expectations and clear boundaries. So, and when you say high expectations, it's the idea of having solid expectations of behavior and of, rules, and that they're communicated clearly. So, where we go to a permissive style of parenting or a permissive style of a relationship, often we won't have expectations. We'll just not have any expectations for behavior or communication, and there won't be very well clear established rules, and it can be, a bit floundery in that idea. And on the opposite side of authoritative is the authoritarian, which, they have high expectations. They have also the high set rules, and but it can be, well, we'll get into the differences in a little bit, but it can be more not inclusive of the child itself or the person itself. So you might notice for yourself of, how do you treat yourself? Do you treat yourself, neglectfully? Do you treat yourself permissively? Do you treat yourself authoritatively? Do you treat yourself authoritatively? Again, I know for myself in the background, like some of my queued up language with myself goes very authoritative, and that's from like being raised in that kind of environment. And then I also had the opposite side where there was some neglectful, permissive side. And so I can also have that side with myself. So my background, way my dialogue goes can be quite a duality of this mix of neglectful to authoritarian. And I am personally committed to have this authoritative relationship with myself. But back to the key characteristics of an authoritative parenting relationship: high expectation and clear boundaries. And again, I think inside of me, my own love for sovereignty, that is boundaries, and not boundaries in the sense of these are these hard edged spiky fences. No, boundaries are they're your edges. They're saying this is where you end and another begins. This is what you're accountable and responsible for. This is you knowing your terrain. This is you knowing yourself. This is you knowing what you're a yes to, what you're a no to, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what fills your cup, what drains your cup. Your boundaries are you, being the container of yourself and your being and all the layers of yourself in this life force. So, your boundaries are you giving yourself structure, really. You're giving yourself foundation. You giving yourself a place to come from. So those are boundaries, and they're super important. So having high expectations and clear boundaries where there's established reasonable rules and expectations, and they're communicated and understood clearly. Another key characteristic of authoritative parenting and an authoritative relationship is warmth and responsiveness. So, and I love that word responsiveness. When we even looked at, the definition of consciousness, it's the idea of being responsive is a big part of it. So I really like this part of being warm and responsive. And so you're being emotionally supportive, attentive to your needs, and provide a nurturing environment. So, if you're having this authoritative relationship with yourself, you're being warm with yourself and responsive. You're being emotionally supportive. You're being attentive to your needs and providing a nurturing environment for yourself. Another key characteristic of an authoritative relationship is reasoning and explanation. So instead of simply demanding obedience, authoritative parents explain the reasons behind the rules and consequences, fostering understanding and critical thinking. So if we take a look at, having this relationship with ourselves and this authoritative relationship with ourselves, it's instead of just demanding and pushing and forcing ourselves to, go in a certain direction, we can explain, we can look at why this makes sense. We can come to an understanding of why it might be in our best interest. We can use critical thinking and get to understand what the rules and consequences are and why they exist. So we can really get that, they really are for our best interest. They're really here to serve us and to forward with us. Another key characteristic of authoritative parenting is open communication. So, again, this is about the parenting. They encourage children to express their opinions and feelings, even if they differ from the parents' views. So if we look at this authoritative relationship we can have with ourselves, having this open dialogue with ourselves where we encourage ourselves to express our opinions and express our feelings, even if we have conflicting and differing opinions and feelings, we, let all the parts of ourselves be. We can let all the ways of ourselves be. We can meet ourselves with that kind of understanding and emotional support and attentiveness and allow that expression to happen. Another key characteristic of authoritative parenting is independence and autonomy. So while setting boundaries, authoritative parents also allowed for age-appropriate independent and decision-making, promoting self-reliance and responsibility. And I love this one. I'm such about independence and autonomy. Autonomy all the way. I fly my flag on autonomy. But with a relationship with ourselves, looking we need to have some room here. We need to grow our self-reliance. We need to promote responsibility. We need to give ourselves some room to make some mistakes, to have some independent thinking, and to not control all the aspects of ourselves, to give ourselves some room for our independence and decision-making. And again, responsibly, and this is where it's, in my opinion, super important to know kind of your strengths and your weaknesses, kind of to know where your pitfalls might be, kind of to know where, your queued up mechanisms might be so that you can work with yourself. So you know where you can give yourself a lot of room and where you might need to give yourself a little bit more support and up underness because, you might have a queued up, past-based, trauma-based, reaction versus response, and you might need some support there. But giving yourself room for this independence and autonomy so you can gain your self-reliance and you can gain, through that, you can gain a lot of assuredness and confidence in who you are and how you operate. So back to the key characteristics of authoritative parenting. Another key characteristic is discipline as guidance. So discipline is used as a tool for teaching and guiding behavior rather than punishment. And I love this, right? One thing I noticed with myself is something I developed over the years because I really resisted, I really didn't want to punish my kids. And coming to the relationship with myself, I don't want to punish myself. And I know for myself, I can go to punishment for myself as one of the first places I can go due to how I was raised in my own parenting style. That was, the own parenting style that I was raised inside of. And so originally when I had my kids, I really pushed back at even the idea of discipline. I knew it was important and discipline needed to happen, and discipline is a real act of love, but I didn't want it to be from any form of punishment. So I love this idea of using discipline as a tool for teaching and guiding behavior. Discipline can be really utilized as an act of love when it's, teaching and for guiding behavior and not for punishment. So, and then when we look at a relationship with ourselves, how can we bring discipline into our lives? How can we use discipline as a tool for teaching and guiding behavior, but not as punishing ourselves and, demeaning ourselves or lashing ourselves or trying to control ourselves? So, looking at how we use discipline in our life is a really key factor on building a really great relationship with ourselves, and especially inside of building an authoritative relationship with ourselves and a trusting, authoritative place we can come from with ourselves. So those are the key characteristics of what an authoritative relationship is. And I'll go over them quickly once more: is having high expectations and clear boundaries, having warmth and responsiveness, having reasoning and explanation, having open communication, having independence and autonomy, and utilizing discipline as guidance. So those are the key characteristics. So when you look at yourself of being the authority in your life and building an authoritative relationship in your life, look for, what are your expectations on yourself? Do you have clear boundaries? Are you warm and responsive? Do you meet yourself where you are? Do you bring in reasoning and explanation? Do you have open communication and openness with yourself? Do you give yourself independence and autonomy? And do you use discipline as guidance? So I found this conversation fascinating when I was looking at the different kind of parenting styles and then drawing it into, what kind of relationship am I to have with myself? I can see what kind of relationship I aim to have with my kids, this idea of authoritative versus authoritarian or permissive. It's really this idea of authoritative that's important to me as a parent, but what an opportunity to come from some very clear specifics of the kind of relationship I want to have with myself. I really want to have an authoritative relationship with myself. And of course I do, because I am the authority of my life and myself, whether I know it, like it or not. I am the authority in my life. I am the person that holds the bag at the end of the day. I am the one that has the impact and the experience of my life, and that's actually living my life. I am the authority of my life. And where do I abdicate that? Where do I embrace it? Where do I soar? Where do I lean in? Where am I leaning back? Where am I resisting? Where am I not present to or not consciously creating that? So, lots of great places to look and inquire in is how can I build my authoritative relationship with myself? How can I cultivate it? How can I nourish it? How can I grow it? How can I live into it? And how can I be responsible for it? So that is the invitation to you, is to look at this idea of, you are the authority in your life. Do you want to start building an authoritative relationship with yourself? One where you can really build trust in the authoritative relationship you have with yourself, so that you can really give yourself room room to live and room to experience, room to grow, room to make mistakes and get messy and, love yourself up in the process and grow from it and build this and expand this authoritative relationship with yourself. So that's the conversation for today. I invite you in, enjoy it, explore it. And again, I love that idea of, author is in authoritative. You go get to be the author of your life. Go be the author. Go write your tale. Go live your experience and go soak it in and enjoy it. It is yours. Go grow, be, and soar. Enjoy. That's all for today. See you next time for the sake of ourselves. Bye.